No, because I'll probably Google all that.
I write them down as I go.
So I asked Jennifer, she talked to him about getting a digital clock right for teenagers. Because we always look. Oh, good. Okay.
You could do it if you want. That would save me from doing it. 74 minutes. Could you do that?
I don't do that part. I'll just watch it.
Well, they have to look at CRD, where they flash yellow when it starts and then red, and Tina's looking into
Yeah, Langford has one too.
to sit right. Yeah, it's hard for me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One email. I'm going to try to figure it out. And then I'll do that. Okay, now I'll just watch it. That's why I like the clocks there. The mark is like
Yeah,
underneath.
totally. You're not, it's really awful, but John Rans asked me to, after the meeting, come sit, felt the interventionist, which was good. But I mistakenly looked at the clocks. It was really awful, because Rans, getting to know his to them, it was quite disrespectful on my part. So you want to be really casual about it. So, anyways, we were, yeah, no, it was good. Tim started all that. Don't put up with crap from your colleagues.
How's it working for you so far?
Yeah, exactly.
Least of your worries.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a snowy evening on March 4th, 2024. This is the council meeting of the District of Metchosin. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that the District of Metchosin works to be increasingly mindful of its commitment and its relations to be a more inclusive government with our neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge our neighboring First Nations governance with whom we are committed to building stronger relationships, the Shiano First Nation and the Sook First Nation. With that, we've got an agenda before us. We've got a number of pinks here that we should add to the AA, 11A, and 11G, two packages there. With that, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the late items.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we might amend the motion to move forward the consideration of the two bylaws this evening. There's a lot on the agenda here, and I'm just, I think it would be good if we're fresh for those discussions.
To
move them ahead? Oh, I'd rather not.
Maybe before reports for information.
Yeah, I'd rather not do that. That is going to muck up things.
Okay, I won't make a motion to that effect.
Okay. Go ahead.
I also believe we're not having a presentation from this
No,
company.
it's being postponed. She
Okay,
can't get
great.
here on the roads.
Okay.
So I'll move approval of the agenda with that addition.
With the additions, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. And public participation. Should anybody like to speak in the microphone, you have 4 minutes. If you could give us your name and your road number, that would be great. Thank you.
Good evening, Deirdre Telbra, 4623 William Head Road. I'm here on behalf of the Metchosin Seniors Association to ask only for a letter of support, which our liaison has brought to you. As you know, the Metchosin Seniors Association has an agreement with the district to provide a list of services that are outlined in the agreement. In addition to that, we have an agreement with the Pacific Centre of Family Services to offer the Better at Home program in Metchosin. This is funded by the province of BC through the United Way. The services that we are able to offer in the Chosen for the Better at Home program, of which we have about 40 members, 40 clients who are Better at Home clients. Our tech support with their devices, friendly visits and wellness checks, and transportation. And transportation continues to be our challenge. We have volunteers who transport people to medical appointments, but often it can be a bit of a scramble finding a volunteer, and we have little backup. We're not alone with this concern. Consultation throughout the province by Healthy Aging BC has found transportation as a concern in many rural communities. So the Healthy Aging BC has made available some grants, enhancement grants, and we would like to apply for the Transportation Enhancement Grant. We would like to collaborate with a local transportation company and offer perhaps drives in a bus 3 or 4 times a year to special events, things like the symphony, the Soup Fine Art Show, a church supper or lunch, recognizing, and I probably don't need to say this to you, but recognizing that in rural communities, the risk of isolation and loneliness has a real effect on physical and mental health. So this is why we are keen to proceed. Key to applying for this grant is collaboration from other community-based senior sectors, and we've had some great letters of support. I'd just like to conclude with a paragraph in a letter that we received written by the Reverend Wallace Emer, the deacon at St. Mary the Incarnation. A majority of our congregation is over 60 years old, so we understand directly from them and indirectly from our friends and family in this rural community of large properties that as age progresses and independent mobility wanes, social isolation can become a major issue. Transportation eventually becomes a challenge for almost all seniors, and we are in full support of this application. I hope Council will join the others supporting us in our application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ellen Frisch, Perry Crossroad. Just a couple of questions and seeking clarifications on tonight's agenda item 8A. It was good to look at the status of the opportunity to look at feasibility studies, and in reviewing through it, I just wanted to be able to ask a couple, clarifying questions. It looks like in the end, the option is to conduct the feasibility study, and is option 1. Option 2, do it with an MOU, and option 3, an MOU with the Firefighters Society. So that's a correct understanding? Okay, perfect. The other thing I noticed that in tonight's supplemental agenda, the agreement with the Firefighters Society was circulated as well, which speaks to its operation and function insofar as its role in managing and maintaining the lounge or the fire hall. If this council considers entering into an MOU, would there be further discussion around what that scope might look like for the Firefighters Society, since the society's terms of their incorporation were not circulated, to know that if they even have the mandate to take something like that on, which would be exciting, but just wondering if we have that information as well, and how that might fit into the planning process, if they need to have a vote of their society membership to agree to even take on a planning role. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Jennifer Burgess, 3837 Duke Road. I am a member of the Metchosin Seniors Board, and so I support my wonderful chair of our board, and by Friday we will be putting in a grant for transportation. It's under the United Way. There's a section of new funding that the provincial government has given to Better at Home. It's a source of funding for the entire province, and it's something I think in the neighborhood of 40 million. We had anticipated that they would fund Better at Home sort of as our works take place, but instead they've come out with this opportunity to file for the funds rather than provide the funds to the Better at Home operations. So that's why we really are anxious to get this grant in on Friday and see what we can do about ensuring that we have the proper mobility for the seniors in our community that really need it in order to, as Deirdre said, issues of isolation and social connectedness that we're very concerned about. Plus, we'd like to get them even perhaps on just little nice drives, drop them at a mall. Here you go, you want to go and have some food, do some shopping. Maybe we can add just a little bit more activity for our good seniors. So I hope that you endorse our request for a letter. That was under 10A, I think, on your agenda. And the other part of the agenda that I would also like to support and wholly endorse is some kind of solution to your agenda item 8A tonight, the feasibility study for the fire hall. I note on all of the notes of our CAO that really this started about 2021 and we're now in 2024. So I just encourage you to make a pretty major decision around how we move this ahead tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Chris Moore, 4545 William Head Road. Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Payette. I would like to speak to two items tonight as they are relevant to our ongoing budget discussions and have other important and I think timely implications for our community. I've timed my time. I'm under 4 minutes, okay? My first comment, and I believe it is echoed by others, relates to the extremely poor quality of the audio equipment in our council chambers. Not that I'm the best person to attest to that in one ear, but as I recall, the acoustics here have been problematic as long as I can remember, but they've never been as bad as recently. As a test, I recently engaged some much younger relatives to listen to the videotape recording, and their response, I can only make out about one word out of every 5, and that with difficulty. So if you are interested in making the broadcast and on-site attendance of value to our residents, please add this agenda item to your upcoming budget meeting. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Okay, secondly, if I may, this is in regard to item 11F on tonight's agenda. That is the application to rezone the 4499 Leafield Road property. Our planner has again provided some very solid information on the substance and the implications of this proposal, as well as a number of residents in the community. I'm not going to reiterate those here, but here's something I think you should know. You may already. At this point in time, you have a very divisive community. I based that on a series of extensive interviews with numerous residents over the past 2 months in an entirely different context. And it's perhaps not a surprise, given after 3 years of COVID, climate change, the state of world affairs, etc. People are down. Some are actually in despair. Your residents, based on that extensive project, are very much in need of a foundation, an anchor, if you will, in their daily lives. And on a local basis, that foundation means providing hope, which lies in our OCP. The application for 4499 Leafield Road clearly flies in the face of that. On a practical front, it's not difficult to estimate the costs to Metchosin taxpayers should this application proceed. Hours and hours of staff and council's time associated with preparation, analysis, notification, advertising, and the hosting of a public hearing, the outcome of which is already quite apparent. What is particularly striking in this particular application is what is the possible benefit to Metchosin, and in particular to its taxpayers, with the exception of one. And I won't even want to talk about setting unwanted precedents. So in light of the proceeding, and for the sake of your residents and what is left in their wallets, please reject this application at the outset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Good evening, Brent Donaldson, Challenger Court. I'd like to speak briefly tonight about the feasibility study for the fire hall. Just a side note, I've been appointed from the last council to participate on the steering committee, and our last meeting was in November. Certainly when this came forward a number of months ago, it was a bit of a surprise. I know, I'm not sure the fellow's name, made a presentation at the November meeting. Certainly this is a very ambitious undertaking for the society, and certainly it would be nice to have the president of the society here to speak on their behalf. I see our fire chief, and I'm mentioning this with no disrespect, but the fire chief actually is a member of the society, which is like kind of being in management union. So I would just caution, moving forward with that. I think it puts the fire chief in a bad spot. Managing an apartment building, essentially that's what it's going to be. That's a huge undertaking. Certainly I don't know whether the society has a capability. All those folks are volunteers to manage a structure with tenants and building maintenance. Certainly I support dormitories in a new building. Certainly we are going down that route with having folks stay overnight, and certainly my occupation, I was involved with the fire service for 35 years, and 26 of those I was slept overnight at the fire hall in a dorm. So certainly I would support that 100%. Referring to the Skyline report on the condition of the apparatus bays, certainly they don't meet today's standards, but I believe that structure isn't that old to start looking at tearing it down. Our apparatus to me is second to none, and certainly that's something that we could start going on now, looking at getting those seismic issues dealt with. I know there has been mentioned that a new structure could incorporate a new apparatus bay, but we are only just over 5,000 people. Certainly our municipality hasn't grown greatly. So I just think that, we are putting a lot of emphasis on this feasibility study with a lot of information that we should get prior to that. Would the government even entertain a smaller scaled down version of an apartment? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 5? Are we looking at multifamily? I know maybe the feasibility study can maybe condense that. But certainly maybe those questions could be asked before we spend government's money. It may be coming from the province, but still we're all taxpayers, so it's all coming out of one pocket. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Cote, 4499 Leafield Road. I'd just like to take 2 minutes to speak regarding our application for rezoning. This process is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. The meetings, research, and presentations are stressful, and some feedback can definitely make one feel like a total villain. But we are in it for the long haul. So I would like to thank the mayor and councillors who came out to our property in January for a site visit. After walking the property and being able to visualize our proposal in the flesh rather than as a piece of paper, I believe you could see the benefits and challenges. We feel the new parcel would fit nicely into the neighborhood without changing the rural feel. And rather than a spot zone, I feel it completes the row, similar lots on that side of the road. The current logging road can easily be upgraded to meet the district emergency requirements. There would be minimal removal of trees, with only a few requiring official tree permits, as the property has been historically logged at least once and has recovered to fully treed. The location of the one new well has yet to be determined. The 30-meter riparian area from the unnamed creek on the adjacent property at the southwest corner extends about 8 meters onto the corner of the property, and our plan is to build at least 50 meters away from the edge of that 30-meter riparian zone. So that's just a refresher of what we walked around in January. I'd also like to thank Ms. Lethishin, the planner, for working with us. Her comprehensive report provides excellent detail necessary for the decision asked of council. There were no substantial comments noted from the internal and external agencies that were contacted. There's lots of historical information provided as far as zoning and subdivision that occurred before Metchosin was incorporated. And since incorporation, I'm sure that changes have occurred in various areas of Metchosin. I do not see our proposal as one illustrated by the little boy plugging the hole in the dike, preventing the flood. The council chamber would be packed tonight with people with their applications on their laps, waiting for your decisions. With bated breath. While current policy support may not be strong, increasing the density in this case is for one residence. Not substantial expansion, just one. This represents a minor change to the OCP that would add one new parcel, one new house, and one new well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we stay here?
No. Support. Didn't want to budge, but geez, boy. Dan Cote, 4499 Leafield. I could tell you a little story about how we got here. In 1985, I was a young carpenter, just married, expecting our first child. So in 1986, we bought a 10-acre property on the end of Leafield Road with a fixer-upper house on it. Leafield Road at the time was still gravel top. No fire hydrants, no natural gas, no cable vision. And the best we could manage was a 4-party party line for the telephone. The next closest neighbor was a half a kilometer down the road. We watched as our neighbors to the east developed their properties and built their homes. I even helped on 2 of them. We never heard that the houses were too close together or that the terrain was too rough. Everyone had enough room. You have all walked our property. It is not much different than theirs, basically the same topography. In 1986, I attended the OCP meetings and saw that our property was going to stay as a split zone. I learned that to change the OCP would have to apply for an amendment to change things. So 10 or so years later, we did just that. We were told no, that Metchosin was under 5,000 residents and wanted to stay that way because once it crossed that barrier, we would have to pay more for the policing costs. Now we understand that the properties beside us to the east were rezoned at a different, rezoned and subdivided at a different time. Different rules under the CRD, not Metchosin. But they were done, most likely, for different housing needs of that time. Well, here we are in 2024. We're over the 5,000 mark. we're facing double-digit tax increases, a local, provincial, and national housing shortage, as well as higher policing costs. And our children are caught in the middle of this. Is that 4?
No,
Okay,
sorry.
sorry.
I shouldn't handle the timers.
So unless someone in this room wants to volunteer to leave and let their house up for sale, there's little or no chance that any of my children could move back to Metchosin without a little help. We have had the opportunity now for 20 years to build a detached secondary suite, and we haven't. Why? Because it doesn't work with the placement of our house. We would have to move the first house to accommodate the suite. Also, it's hard to raise a family in a 90 square meter home. And who wants to live in their mother-in-law's backyard? We have proposed this change so that one of our children can own a home in Metchosin and be near mom and dad. We will require permission for one new lot, sized so that it cannot be divided again. One new well, as our other well is doing just fine. 38 years we have never run dry, contrary to Mr. Justin and Ms. Bacon. All the rest of the costs and improvements will be ours. And in the end, Metchosin will have one more family to help shoulder the burden of increased taxes. Some residents in Metchosin must have a perfect situation. Perfect area, perfect neighborhood, perfect everything. I'm happy for them. And they may not want to change anything that'll upset the perfect situation. That any change is bad. We think that this is the perfect property, the perfect neighborhood, and the perfect time to consider this for approval. I would like to ask council to consider the difference in density between a new family squeezed into a 90 square meter secondary suite and a new family in a home of their own, with their own yard, their own space, and able to help Metchosin shoulder the burden of an ever increasingly expensive world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you for everybody for their information and the public participation. Oh, okay.
Hi, Darren Brown, Graceland Road, Albert Head neighborhood. Regarding the Duke Road East Trail proposal. So we should all be very concerned about the rush to spend $20,000 for this latest small section of the latest proposal of the Duke Road Trail. This is a very divisive issue in our neighborhood and our community. So I've spoken to many people about the trail and heard overwhelmingly that it is unnecessary, impractical, expensive, redundant, and does not serve the best interests of the community. Trees will need to be fallen, and significant drainage infrastructure will be put at great risk. So I'm left puzzled at the rush to spend $20,000 of our tax dollars on this controversial project. We've heard from our renowned trail builder that improvements on the order of a Lomax road style improvement will be required in widening the road to complete this trail. Does anyone recall the budget on the Lomax Road Trail? $250,000, $500,000, more? What is the rush to approve this sort of spending in these very trying financial times? Haste makes waste. Sun Tzu famously said that tactics without strategy is noise before defeat. So let's talk about strategy for a second. Enshrined in Appendix 1 of our OCP is a wonderful document. It's the Metchosin Parks and Recreational Master Plan. It contains the Metchosin Community Trail Network Master Plan. This is where roadside trails are discussed at length and prioritized in their importance to the whole community. This document identifies the priority for roadside trails, and Duke Road Trail is 14 out of 14. It is last. Again, in order of priority for the whole community, this trail was ranked dead last. What is the rush to spend $20,000 on this lowest of priority trails? How do you justify the reckless change and departure from our strategic plan? It is divisive, costly, negatively environmentally impactful, and redundant. Thank you.
Katie Nelson, 4596 William Head Road. And I just wanted to thank the previous speaker for clarifying items about the Duke Road Trail. I felt like I needed to know more about it, and I appreciate that, of course, folks would like to have a trail in their neighborhood, but it does seem like this is a rush thing. It sounds like it's not the best idea for that area. And also, when I first heard about it, I was a little concerned because if I really wanted a trail in my neighborhood, the first thing I would be doing would be offering to have volunteer other neighbors take care of that trail and help create it. And that's not something that has happened, so to me it would just be an ongoing expense that would be one more thing driving the Chosen's expenses up beyond what everybody wants.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, let's move on to our agenda. We've got the adoption of the minutes on page 9 of your council agenda.
Move adoption. Second.
Sorry. Moved by Councillor App, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Or you have a comment? Go ahead.
I just wanted through the chair if I could ask, seeing on page 6, leasing commercial space is a priority at the school, and I wonder how we're doing with that. It's a question for the CEO.
CEO, Mr. Pyatt, would you like to come to the microphone to give us an update on the leasing of the school?
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Mayor, and through to council. So of course we have the lease in place for the pub that everyone's well aware of, and we have increased their space slightly by adding a small office space for their administrative needs onto their lease. And it generates, I gotta go by memory here because I wasn't prepared for this question, but I believe it's about $2,500 a month in lease revenue, maybe a little bit more. So that's excellent. And we are in negotiations with the preschool after quite a bit of input. And so we're hoping to get the preschool into the available space as soon as possible, but there are some safety renovations that I would like to do before little kids are in there. So we're between negotiating that lease opportunity and doing renovations, we are hoping to get them in there in the next few months for registration and then commencement in September. So that's pretty exciting. The rate that we are charging is not based on a square footage rate such as the pub was, because they are sort of cash strapped a little bit at this point, but we have determined a reasonable rate. I'm almost calling it like a nonprofit rate for the time being, and then we have a chance to review that rate with them based on their registration. So we'll go through the exercise of registration. They can open their books to us, and then we can determine together what the final rate will be. But to get them going, we are looking at about $750 a month. So that's excellent. There are ongoing training bookings for the facility that are looking good for the whole year, and we have, I believe, an opportunity to look at a lease with a college for the training space, so we can run that space concurrently between weekends and nightly trainings, and potentially like an annual lease for a college to use it during the day. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity. And I believe that that wraps up where we're at with leases. We're working with Mecca on their current space. They're enjoying it, and we are looking at I just want to mention, this is just outside of the question, but I'm concerned that we have a proper maintenance plan for the facility, and so I have asked staff, we have in-house staff that can do this, to develop an annual, monthly, and weekly maintenance plan for the school. And the daily supervision of the school, we've captured with our in-house staff, so that our risk management is mitigated. So, thank you.
If I may, I'm sorry, that was a great answer. But I was interested about the commercial area, that instinct training one. Is that where college may come in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about the toilets? Are they working now?
Everything's working.
Great, thank you.
There is some discussion on the pub and the effects of their drainage on the, I guess, the septic system. And so I have reached out to staff and some experts to determine. We have that in the lease that they're required to make sure that that's mitigated properly. So I haven't got a definitive answer, but we are working on that just to make sure that it's to our satisfaction.
Great, thank you very much. Go ahead.
One
Question from Councillor Donaldson.
Sorry.
Through the chair.
Thank you, through the chair. Can you give us an update on the Liquor Control Board had a big sign out in front with the extension of hours, what the outcome of that is or has?
I believe it was approved by the.
So they're 11 till.
Is that correct? Yeah. And then we have asked preschool, well, it's up to preschool to determine if they are able to run with that in place. And they're well aware and they are able to run their operations. So thanks for that question.
Thanks.
So with that, thank you.
Yep.
That I'll call a question on the adoption of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. On page 17, we have the special council meeting of February 24th. I'll take a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have minutes for receipt. First of all, Councillor Donaldson, the special finance meeting on page 19 of February 8th.
Move to receive the Special Finance Committee meeting, the budget meeting, February 8th, 2024.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Schuppen. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have Councillor Schuppen, the Community Planning Committee meeting of February 12th.
Thanks, Senator Little. And I just wanted to flag one thing for council. Have a look on page 29 and you'll see the motion that we made to update the development procedures bylaw related to Bill 44. And just wanted to flag some of you'll see on page 29, some of the components that we've asked staff to have a look at. So with that, I move receipt of the minutes of the special planning committee meeting of February 12th.
Okay, moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then Councillor Gray, we have the Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting of February 12th, 2024.
I'll move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comment? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So on page 35, Councillor Schuppen, we have the Special Community Planning Committee meeting. This was the joint meeting with the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Little. And before I move receipt, I just wanted to flag that we did have a presentation from the Albert Head Neighborhood Group on the Duke Road East Trail, the proposed trail. One thing I did want to flag is that we were sent, I think it was last year, a petition, statements of support for the Duke Road Trail East, which had 150 signatures on it. Not everyone living on the Duke Road Trail, but again, clear support for that. Now, I have heard from neighbors along Duke Road East that have some questions, and I will admit that there is some opposition from one party that I've heard from. But the other party who expressed concerns as opposed to outright opposition. So contrary to what an earlier speaker described as a controversial trail, I don't think the evidence would suggest that it is such. So again, I just want to compliment the group of neighbors who have been there. They're very much involved and very much invested in the potential of maintenance, playing a maintenance role as we go in the future. So with that, I would move receipt of the special community planning meeting of February 20th.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have Councillor Donaldson, the special finance community or committee meeting of February 22nd.
Let's move to receive the special finance committee budget meeting of February 22nd, 2024.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comment? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the mayor's report. We have a couple of items for the rise and report from our release of closed meeting resolutions for February 24th. The council had a strategic planning session. Council held a strategic planning session on Saturday, February 24th, to set priorities for the year of 2024. Thank you everybody for participating. Once finalized, these priorities would be brought forward to an open meeting at the community planning meeting. And we have some citizen appointments for advisory committees, March 4th, 2024. The following appointments were made at the closed portion of the council meeting. For the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee, Candace Zylek, Matt Ashton, and Sasha Kubicek. So with that, thank you for putting your names forward. We actually had lots of applicants. It was really great to see that we have so many people wanting to volunteer on our advisory committees. It was a hard choice. And similarly, we had a number of applicants on the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee. The following members of our community have been appointed: Kathy Atherton, David Shanks, and Caroline Donahue. Congratulations to the 6 of these. Business arising. On page 45, Councillor Shukin, we have business arising from the minutes of the council meeting March 4th.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mayor Little. I'll just go through these as quickly as I can. We talked about the park donation guidelines for staff. That came from PTASC after a considerable discussion and amendments from the PTASC itself. And so I would just simply request that council approve the amendments to the Parks Donation Program guidelines for staff. So
moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Do you want to speak to that?
I don't think so.
Okay, Councillor Donaldson, do you want to speak to that item? No. Anybody else? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, second, Mayor Little, that council direct staff to take an additional look at what legislative tools are available to more fully comply with the short-term rental legislation, including possible amendments to the district's business license bylaw, number 352, including the principal residence requirement and the possibility of putting that requirement into the definition. The definition of short-term rentals. Second would be the use of fines, inspections for safety, and the square footage in terms of the homes that are being offered as short-term rentals. And finally, that council directs staff to bring forward an update to council as further policy guidance has been received from the province. So moved.
Thank you. This is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Carry on.
Finally, Mayor Little, that council directs staff to initiate an update to the development procedures bylaw for consideration at a future council meeting. So moved. And again, this relates to complying with the small-scale multi-unit housing or the housing legislation, Bill 44.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And next we have the Environment and Natural Areas Committee recommendations from February 12th. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I have 2 motions to put forward here to council coming from the Environment and Natural Areas Committee recommendations of February 12th, 2024. The first one is around human-wildlife conflict, and the motion is that council seek advice from the Agricultural Advisory Select Committee and the Environmental Advisory Select Committee on addressing human-wildlife conflict.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. You want to motivate?
Sure, I can just say that this is a big topic for Metchosin. We've got various forms of conflict with wildlife. The one that this motion came up about originally was to do with apex predators, cougars and bears, and the effect that they're having on sheep populations. And just looking to see if there's any and what type of role the district might have in helping out. Since we passed the motion at the Environment Committee, we've learned that the Agriculture Committee and their agricultural plan has got an action. It's a draft report at the moment, but support the agriculture sector in managing wildlife conflicts on farms. And so we're hoping that Representative Mias can work with the Agriculture Committee and see what, if any advice would come forward to the district.
Okay, so just to clarify, this motion is humans and wildlife conflict, not necessarily wildlife and domestic animals.
Human-wildlife conflict is a big package. And so when referring to human-wildlife conflict, in this case, this originated because of cougars killing sheep. The sheep are owned by humans, farming, and the issue is the connection between the two. But we also have issues, as we all know, with rabbits, predators, cougars and bears at the moment. And then we also have issues around rabbits and deer.
And geese. Okay.
And geese.
Okay, so this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Anybody else wish to comment? Okay, now I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that.
Mayor Little,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself for the reasons I gave at the meeting on February 12th for this next issue.
Okay,
So, thanks.
thank you. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so again, coming from the same Environment and Natural Areas Committee, I move that Council endorse the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion?
Sure, this is in keeping with our Declaration on Climate Emergency and Biodiversity Crisis, and the interest here is to join with other municipalities and push forward to create a mechanism for reducing the use of fossil fuels and phasing out existing production and develop plans to support workers in communities and countries who are dependent on fossil fuels.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment? Not, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now, moving to the reports for action on page 49. Oh, yes, please come back. Sorry. We have a report from our CAO on the fire hall replacement feasibility study and funding opportunities. I was wondering if Mr. Payette, could you come to the microphone? Thank you.
Okay, thanks Mayor Little, and through council to the general public. I gotta get my glasses for this one. There. So I would like to take council through the report fairly quickly. I believe some of the 10 residents here tonight covered quite a bit of it. Thank you very much, saved me a bit of time. But I did want to give this one another kick at the can because I think it's important to have, you know, that robust discussion about the feasibility study. And but I agree we need to move along. So hopefully there's enough information in the report tonight. We're happy to answer questions. Council had requested additional information on the previous report. It was admittedly a little bit of a surprise to some, but if you notice in the background, there was indication of affordable housing in October of 2023, so you know, not too much of a surprise, I don't think. In the background, it talks, like some people noticed, that this started in 2021 with a committee, a steering committee in 2022, and then a number of reports were conducted on the facility, taking us to October 2023 on a meeting with Mr. Colin Doyland regarding potentially housing. And then I've written a bit of a discussion, my own summary, I would say, and if you don't mind, I could just read it out quickly. Staff would like to move ahead with a request for proposal on the facility study as soon as possible. There may actually be a strategic advantage in engaging the Metchosin Firefighting Society as a local nonprofit organization to assist in researching possible funding opportunities with Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, so CMHA, and BC Housing. The terms, in terms of adding accommodation services to the facility and garnering partnership funding for the rebuild of the fire hall, without a nonprofit memorandum of understanding, it is suggested that approaching CMHA and BC Housing is not possible. So to that end, we have a sizable amount of funding in the building reserve based on some excellent work by finance in the past and council decisions. However, the amount may not be enough. Some of the studies were conducted a few years ago and costs definitely have not gone down, nor have logistics. But a fulsome feasibility study with an options analysis will help determine next steps in this project. The MOU is just the first step in the process, just to help us garner the attention of possible funding options and maybe a more robust feasibility study. We can go ahead with the feasibility study as is, and as was presented by the committee, the steering committee, on the envelope of the current building. My concern is that the amount of funding available in the reserve won't be enough, and at that point we would probably be looking for offsets for funding. And so if we can cover all that in the first feasibility study, that would save us time. One of the lovely lady presented and made some good comments about the scope, the terms of reference, and the vote of the Firefighter Association, and she's correct. That would have to occur as well. The fire chief would recuse herself from any voting. Okay.
Okay, and remind me again, thank you for that report, remind me again, in our reserve fund, which was set up in about 2013, recognizing that the fire hall would need replacing at some point, is about 2 million, 2.1?
Yeah, 2.3, somewhere in there.
2.3,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Evans. Pardon?
Yeah, I just had a comment about this, and that because people seem to be just going over the top about it, is that this is just all about getting a feasibility study. We're not making a decision to build a condo tomorrow over top of the fire hall. It's just the feasibility study, and to try to see if there are any funding, as Mr. Payette said, any other funding options out there. And you know, it's just interesting because I was in a meeting recently, excuse me, and they were talking about a new fire hall in Ganges. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe I'll just see, you know, what the price on that was. And I looked at Salt Spring, and Salt Spring Island is about a little more than double the population of Metchosin, and a little more than double in area. Well, they have 3 fire halls. They have 12 full-time firefighters. And the new fire hall costs $13.7 million. So, you know, I think for Metchosin, any options that we can find for funding, or at least worth looking at, we don't have to decide on them. We can say no, you know, but I think just to leave our options open as far as what might be out there, rather than adding a few more millions and millions of dollars that we probably have to borrow on top of to add to our taxes. That's it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Gray.
I'd like to make a motion that council direct staff to prepare a request for proposals for the contract of a feasibility study specifically for the reconstruction of the current fire hall building. If I get a second, I'll explain myself.
second.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you.
Which option is that?
Option 1. So just thinking back here, I spoke at a previous meeting about this when this item was last on the agenda, to say that I think our priority should be to reach a go, no-go decision on building or replacing the current fire hall. I think the housing issue has clouded the issue, and we've seen limited interest in the community as a result, or people have been vocal about it in opposition to adding a housing to the question. And I think it's making things more difficult for us. We have in our budget already set aside $40,000. We then got a grant, the fire chief was able to secure a grant for $10,000, meaning to us the cost is only $30,000 at the moment. And why I would like to have it done in this way is that I think that our first question is to figure out the necessity or the rationale of building a new fire hall. What's the problem that we're fixing? And then I'd like the feasibility study to address things like options. What kind of repairs would be necessary if there's repairs that are needed? What does a do-nothing option bring us? What about just securing the equipment bay in a seismic way? What about, is it the entire building needs to be replaced? Should the EOC be part of it or not? So my feeling would be that a feasibility study would lay out a number of options, saying if we just replace the fire hall as it is, it would cost like this. If we just did the equipment bay, it would look like that. If we add the EOC, it looks like another thing. And then we get a sense of these are the options before us and these are the costs. We get an idea of the footprint. And then there may be other things. I'm suggesting preparing a request for proposal and council having a view of it, perhaps through the Public Works Committee, because I've looked back at the grant application now that went forward for the $10,000 grant, which we were successful in receiving from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And the arguments in this document are that we want to rebuild the fire hall, it looks like, to improve existing response times, to reduce property damage, to improve emergency response times, enhance public safety, community well-being. And to me, those aren't the things that we need an RFP on. We need an RFP on more like what I've been talking about. So I think it's important that we take a look at it and just see what's the purpose of this proposal and get a good sense of the cost and then make some decisions on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this item?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as a person who has recently joined the steering committee, about a year ago, I guess it was, I've been to 2 of their meetings and have been following it since its inception 2 years ago. I've always been led to believe that there was a necessity to do some form of a rebuild, whether it's partial, fully, or not. The apparatus base, as I've said in the past, is 25 years old, approximately. They can be seismically operated, as has Victoria and Sancha both done with their buildings. Clearly, we all live in the same region, so seismic is a concern. And so we haven't seen those buildings being demolished to upgrade to a seismic. There's mechanisms in place for that. So those are some different things. The other thing is coming from a family of 2 generations, fire service personnel, and seeing fire halls being built. One thing that has been incorporated are dormitories, as somebody had mentioned earlier. We do have a situation right now in our building where firefighters and first responders can stay overnight, and that is the plan we have seen through the budget process, with allocating some funding for that, not for the accommodation that already exists, but for personnel to be there. We've also had personnel through snow removal, sometimes having to stay over. So we've been able to accommodate in the building, and there are parts that definitely need to be updated, if not replaced. There's more conversation needed on that. Feasibility studies do cost money. A year ago when we were doing the budget talks, the request came in at $80,000 and in the one times, and it was negotiated to be the 40,000, and then we got the additional 10. So that, I believe, was back in January 18th, I think, where we started to, actually it was January 23rd that was the budget meeting, but in the steering committee meeting, they were already talking about this sort of thing and how much it would cost for feasibility studies. They're not cheap, we know that with just ag plans and other consultations. However, what's been kind of bothering me is the fact that it's been sitting there for a year and we haven't done anything with this money. So I thought by spring we would have had an RFP written up. Nevertheless, here we are. October 3rd, the steering committee met again, and we had a presentation by Mr. Doylan, who then came to council 2 weeks later, gave a presentation to council, and this has morphed into something a little bit bigger. So more information has come forward, which I'm grateful for. We've gotten some real pushback from the community. Some of it's maybe because we don't have enough information for them. I don't really know. Is this a place to have an apartment block? That I can't answer. But the one thing that does trouble me as a councillor is if we're going to take money from an organization with the idea of not ever building housing and that's what those grants are for, that's not very integral. I would hope that if we were going to do that, that we would actually go the full pull and put it towards what it's going to be. But because we haven't decided if we're going to do housing or if we're going to do building a fire department, rebuild, partial, whatever, the option 1 does suggest that we get a feasibility study to give us some ideas, and we can write that up in the RFP as to specifics of what we're looking for, a bare bones, middle of the road, something that maybe we could phase in or whatever. So those are just some comments I have to support this particular motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Epp?
I won't be supporting this motion because I believe that we should be choosing option 3. That leaves all our options open, whichever ones we choose to go with. And then once we get a very comprehensive feasibility study that really covers all the issues, then we can bring it to the public and have a really fulsome discussion about our needs in this community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councillor Shukin?
I'm with Councillor Epp on this one. Thanks.
Okay. I will be supporting this motion. I would like to vote for number 3. The reason why is precisely, and it was well said by Councillor Epp, I would like as much information as possible for council to make evidence-based decisions. And we can't make those all those decisions without all of the information. We deal often, you know, with imperfect situations, imperfect data, imperfect information. But I think it's incumbent upon us to do this right. This doesn't mean we're going with 4 suites or 5 suites. It wouldn't be an apartment block for sure, because that wouldn't be in keeping with the community. But I'm in favor of getting all of our options. So I won't be supporting this motion. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Sure, I just want to make the point that we're kind of way off process. We have a steering committee that was set up to do this work, and now we're sliding over to an MOU with the Metchosin Volunteer Fire Department Society. The steering committee, I think last met in November. I think they were hoping we'd be moving ahead. We're now moving away from the steering committee. I wonder if we're going to tell them to stand down, if that's part of the idea that folks are having. I also, when we looked at so that's just one thing, it's the process. So I think we're off track here, and it doesn't serve us well in terms of getting things done. And then the second point I'd make is the last time we saw this proposal was for affordable housing. It's my view that if we're going to be involved in affordable housing, it should be by way of supporting our regional partners in urban and suburban areas where affordable housing, thousands of units will be built near public transit and near amenities and services where needed. So I just think it's doesn't make a lot of sense if that's where this is headed. on 2 points, process number 1, and 2 on the issue of housing.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to the motion of option 1? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstaining?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm in favor.
In favor. So all 2 in favor, 3 opposed. Thank you. Thank you for that. The motion fails. Councillor Epp, did you want to put another motion on the table?
I'm going to move option 3. Council directs staff to issue a request for proposals for the contract of a feasibility study that includes the construction of the fire hall that potentially could include accommodation services and emergency operations center as options with an MOU in place.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Councillor Epp, do you want to say anything more?
No.
No? And Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, just really quickly, I recall going through the studies that Chief Dunlap had made available to us last year. To my mind, it was incredibly clear that the fire hall needs to be rebuilt and needed actually to be rebuilt 10 years ago. Now, the comment was made a few weeks ago that the building is still standing, so is there really a problem? Well, no, I don't think that's a good way of looking at it. But so I very much support moving ahead with a feasibility study. The potential of housing, again, especially in this environment with this current government, I think it's an opportunity that we do need to examine. The one thing I would just ask to our staff is just make sure we do focus on the fire hall first and make sure we get a good base there. And then again, look at where the options might fit for housing, for bringing in the EOC and that. So thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Gray and then Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to this motion. So that would read that council directs staff to prepare a request for proposals for review by council, and then carrying on for the contract of a feasibility study. I'm not at all satisfied that council shouldn't take a look at what it is, because we have not yet as a council defined what would be in the RFP, and it appears that we're not taking advice from the steering committee, so I'm not entirely sure what would be in the document. I have a few other comments to make, but I'll just give someone to second that motion.
Okay, we have a suggestion for an amendment by Councillor Gray. Is there anybody that wants to second it?
I'll second that.
And seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Go ahead.
Sure, I think that we heard from the public today, and something that's puzzled me since I first encountered the name Metchosin Volunteer Fire Society in the contract is, what exactly is the mandate? What does the society do? And do they have the authority within their own structure to take on this work? That's the first question I've got. But we're turning to ask them to do the work, and there's a mix-up because our fire chief is actually on the executive of that group. It's not clear to me how they're constituted and how an employee can be part of this arrangement. So I have a number of sort of logical and legal questions that I think need to be resolved at some point. But if we had the chance to take a look at it, I think that would help quite a bit. I take issue with Councillor Shukin's point that the fire hall needs to be replaced. That's why we're doing this study, is because we're not sure about it. We don't actually know. I was told that the reason we were doing it, and I read the 3 reports, was because of earthquake, because it was not earthquake proof. That's a different reason than needs to be replaced. It's a question of what kind of risk you're prepared to bear. And then I might just ask through the chair of the CAO to clarify. The note says that it's $40,000 from council plus $10,000 grant, leading to $50,000. I have a few documents here that suggest that it's $40,000 from us minus $10,000, meaning there'd be $30,000 in the budget now, and I wonder if I could get that clear.
Yeah, so the question, Mr. Payette, is do we have $50,000 for the feasibility study, or do we have $40,000?
We have $40,000 in our budget. We got a grant for 10, which offsets $10,000. And so I think we have $30,000 now from the budget for $40,000 total spend.
Oh, thanks, Mayor, to council. I'm not 100% sure, but I read that it was $40,000 was approved by council towards the grant, and the $10,000 supplements the 40 to add to $50,000 for the study. So.
perhaps we could pick that up in the budget discussions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me to spend $10,000 more than we require.
Anybody else wish to speak to this amendment? Okay, Councillor Donaldson, then Councillor Schuken.
Okay, two things. Councillor Gray just brought up about the staff being part of the memorandum of understanding with the the Firefighter Society. And I noticed this evening with having their occupation license in here, it also says that their president is also a staff member. So those are two things we would have to probably revisit. The other thing too is we wouldn't have to look too far to see some other fire departments in the region that have had housing and whether or not they've worked or not worked. One being Victoria Fire Department and the other one View Royal. And I would suggest that our staff investigate that a little bit further too, and they'd be quite surprised at how those arrangements are going.
Councillor Schuken, then Councillor Epp.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Just to what I believe is the main component of the amendment, and that's for the RFP to come back to council. The thought had crossed my mind as well that as to whether we might request that. But again, we're the comment often made about governance in terms of directing staff and letting them do their job, that resonates with me right now. So I'm not so sure that I need to see the RFP right now. That's the thought that crossed my mind is, again, direction to staff, and that's our role, and then we leave it to them to do their job. So.
Okay, Councillor Epp.
I agree with Councillor Schuken. I think that I have faith that our staff knows how to do an RFP, and I think that any feasibility studies that come back we would certainly expect them to be to look at other things, as Councillor Donaldson suggested, and all different options that are out there. I think the MOU with the Firefighter Society was mostly just that we could avail ourselves of some of the grant money that's out there. We may not end up having to pay for the study, but regardless, I feel that staff is competent in doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll speak to this as well. I think we're getting in the weeds. Having it come back to council, that's an operational issue. We should let staff do their work on that. Certainly, they would be open if you want to make comments, but I think we should let them do their job. Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, so in reference to Councillor Epp's comment about that, I also noticed in the agenda package tonight that the Health Communities had a subcommittee who has had input into an RFP. The same with the Ag Committee has a subcommittee that has as well, so perhaps the steering committee could have some part of that as well. Seems how we've got a very good cross-section of people on that committee with some expertise.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Councillor Epp, would you be okay with that? That if it went to the steering committee, the Fire Hall Steering Committee, for their comment before it was sent out?
Yeah, I think that would be okay, but I really don't want to hold it up much longer than it's already been held up. I think we really need to move along with that.
Okay. Councillor Gray?
I'll just caution then that if I respect the point of view that you raised, that staff should do the job here, but so the $10,000 is that we would be replacing the fire hall to fix response time challenges, mitigate risk, enhancing fire prevention measures, utilizing simulation and modeling, involving the community, and providing a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis. So it may not deliver what you're looking for. And if we end up spending that money and then coming back here and saying, oops, we need to get a feasibility study done now on actually constructing a building for the purposes of, say, earthquake preparedness, we won't be in a position to do that.
Okay. Councillor Schuken?
I very much like the idea of having the the RFP go back to the steering committee. It seems appropriate. They're in the midst of it and have been tasked with that. It's just a matter of, like Councillor Epp was saying, doing that in a timely way. Of course, we want to make sure that Councillor Gray's point is not lost. I mean, we're getting the building that we need first and foremost, and that foundational direction is there in terms of what we get. So,
Okay. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll call the, go ahead.
If I may, are you, is staff being instructed to look at affordable housing for battered women, and housing for farmers in this proposal, in the RFP, just to get clarity so we know what instructions we're giving them?
I'm very comfortable with what the resolution is, the main motion here, so.
All right, just inquiring, perhaps the mayor could answer the question. Is the RFP going to involve affordable housing for battered women, and for farm workers?
I think it would include all of those as options. Okay, so I'll call the question. This is on the amendment to option number 3. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion defeated. I'll call the question. There's no other comments on option 3. This was moved by Councillor Epp. I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? 2 opposed. Go ahead.
Mayor Little, I wonder if it's appropriate to make a motion to have the RFP referred to the steering committee.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Go ahead.
Could I-
Actually, just let me see, you want to motivate first? No? Councillor Epp? No? Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Could we ask the Fire Steering Committee to consider the official community plan of Metchosin when they make their review of the RFP, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Affordable housing is not scheduled for this part of Metchosin.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed.
Did I vote opposed? Did I oppose? No, I'm in favor. Okay.
You're in favor?
Yeah. Okay.
Shukin, Epp, and Little in favor. Gray and Donaldson opposed. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the Fire Safety Expo. This is a memorandum on page 61 from the fire chief regarding the use of the elementary school for the Fire Safety Expo. This is for April 16th and 17th, as they've done in the past. We're expecting about 1,000 grade 4 residents or grade 4 students to be on site for this. It's really a wonderful opportunity for kids. Does anybody else want more information from the fire chief? If not, Councillor Epp, did you want to move this?
Yeah, just move that we support the Let's Create Caven Fire and Life Safety Expo.
Okay. This moved by Councillor Epp, second by Councillor Donaldson. Did you want to say anything else?
No, I think it's a wonderful event that has, it's great to drive by there and see all these kids swarming all over the place, and the fire trucks and the firefighters, and it's really a wonderful experience for the kids.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
And this is a free event. This isn't something they're not being charged for the space.
No, they're not being charged. Yeah. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then we've got the another memo from the fire chief. We've got an RFP for the poverty reduction assessment and strategy. We've got a couple of different options here. Perhaps Fire Chief Dunlop, could you come to the mic and just briefly, very, very briefly outline on page 65 the poverty reduction assessment strategy?
Good evening. I don't have the dates in front of me, my apologies, but we applied for a Community Emergency Preparedness Fund grant. I think it's a CEF, not a CRI. Anyway, a municipal grant. Sorry, I can't remember all the acronyms here tonight.
for poverty reduction. That's just to review the community, specific to, for us, it's vulnerable populations and those that are, living in poverty in Metchosin here, and what we can do to better support them. We're not looking so much at just people who may not have, homes to live in, but maybe those that do but are still living in poverty, in ways that we can possibly help them. So that's really what the application is about. And we have put the RFP out. As noted earlier, we have had discussions with the healthy communities, and we have a subcommittee, and they've all reviewed the RFP along with the actual respondents that responded to the grant, and we have selected the one that is outlined there.
Okay, that's great. Would anybody like to move either of these options? Councillor Epp.
I'll move option 1, direct staff to receive and enter into contract with Resilience Planning for the completion of the Poverty Reduction Assessment Strategy Project, enter into the terms specified in the request for proposal.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comment. Councillor Gray.
Thank you. I think I may have supported this earlier on, but I'm uncertain about the role of the district in this work. When I'm looking at the RFP, I see again it's about housing, which of course we zone and enable housing through our zoning policies, but we don't have another big role there. Income supports, we don't really have much to do with providing income to low-income earners. Social supports, I think the district of Metchosin is a little bit small to be providing those services as well. We have a few employees and we live a long way away from where those services are available. I see we also thought about helping out with discrimination and stigma and safe, affordable transportation. And I think our angle, I'm not sure about discrimination and stigma, but our angle on transportation would be through the role that the mayor plays with BC Transit. I'm not entirely sure what the results of the project will, how they would benefit people in poverty, or the role of the district of Metchosin for people living in poverty here. And so at the moment, I'm not thinking about supporting this. I wondered if we could hear from the CEO through the chair about the amount of staff time that we spent on this, who would be working on it, and so we would know that part.
CAO, the question is how much staff time has been spent on this and how much staff time will be spent in the future?
And who?
Okay, that's a great question, Mayor, through council, to the council. The RFP process is done and sent out, so that was staff time. And then the review of the proponents was done, staff time. And then the recommendation. Next would be just letting the contract, which shouldn't take too much time. And then the consultant does the work and comes back with findings and recommendations. So staff time from here on in would be minimal, and the time spent will be on analyzing the results and potentially bring it forward to a committee or to council with recommendations.
Okay.
And may I ask who would be doing that?
I believe the fire chief will be doing the following through with the grant administration.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Councillor Epp and Councillor Shukin.
When we discussed this grant at the Healthy Communities Committee, I think the idea was, because yes, we don't have, homeless people. We do have homeless people around here, but not the ones, it's not like downtown, like our, the idea was to maybe get a definition of what poverty does look like in Metchosin, because it's not like it looks like in downtown Victoria or Duncan or some of the other places. But there are, as the fire chief can attest from the calls that they've had, there are a lot of, land-rich, cash-poor people in Metchosin that may need help, or there may be ways we can help them. Maybe there aren't ways we can help them, but I think the idea of getting some kind of a definition of what poverty might look like in Metchosin, and if there is that going on, and if there's some way to mitigate some of those issues.
Councillor Schuster.
Wonder if I could ask Councillor a question. What are the needs and interests of seniors as a population that might benefit from that? Was that considered?
Yeah, it was definitely considered, because some of the people that are struggling a bit up there are the seniors. But they're not all of them.
Okay. I also support this. Our job in the municipalities to look after the health and well-being of all of our citizens, not just the wealthy ones, not just the ones that are doing well. I think it's laudable to look after the most marginalized people in our population. It would also give the fire chief more information to help her do her job better as well. And so I would be in favor of Councillor Epps' motion. Councillor Graham.
One thing that we could do that I know is on our agenda, we'll be meeting on Thursday, we're looking at our budget. If we could bring our tax rate down, that would help a lot of the people who are land rich, cash poor. That's something we can actually do. It's within our power and authority to do that. So I hope that when we meet, we can take a good look at some of the expenditures that are still at proposal stage and decide whether or not we want to proceed with them.
Mm-hmm. And that certainly is the direction that the finance chair is taking us to. So, thank you. Okay, with that, I'll call the question on option 1. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. Thank you. We have reports for information next, and we have the building inspection report on page 67. Move receipt. Moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have the public communication report statistics on page 69. Move receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the monthly bylaw and animal care services report on page 71. Any comments on this? If not, I'll take a motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Schuken. Anybody else? Comment? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the correspondence for action on page 83. Oh yes, so this is regarding the Metchosin Seniors Association. They're asking us for a letter of support for their aging in motion transportation supports and innovations.
I'll move that council through the mayor send a letter of support, or provide a letter of support to the Metchosin Seniors Association. Then they do need it before Friday, if I'm correct, for this grant application, which is an aging in motion grant for transportation supports and innovations.
Okay, Councillor Epp, second by Councillor Donaldson. Anybody else wish to comment? I'll write the letter tomorrow, I promise. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then on page 91, we have the Morley's Meadow Group applying for a BC Hydro Community Regreening Program. They're asking for a letter of support for their grant application to install pollinator-friendly native plants to the area in Morley's Meadows. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I think it's actually that the district is submitting the application on their behalf. And so I move that the district do so. And I can explain if I get a seconder.
I will second.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this the news of this grant came to us, and I sought the advice of Andy McKinnon about what kind of regreening there might be, might make sense given the grant's nature, and he suggested Morley's Meadow. And Marilee Hohen stepped up right away with Katie Nelson and put together the grant application, and Mr. Payette's agreed to be the contact person on behalf of the district. And it amounts to, I think you'll have seen here, something like $3,000 worth of native plants to further enhance and restore Morley's Meadow. And I think it's well worthy of support.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Shukin.
And I believe the supplier of the native plants will be Still Meadow
No, Satin.
Flower Nurseries. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
native plants, local business as well. So yeah,
Absolutely.
great.
Okay, and as a liaison to the Morley's Meadow in the last term, this is a wonderful group and they are doing meticulous work in the Morley's Meadow, and I think this would be a great addition, so I would be in favor of this. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, and then moving on to page 113. This is a letter from the Matrosen Co-op Preschool. Given the, we awarded them grant and aid in 2022 and 2023. They've had a lot of uncertainty, as we've heard tonight and other nights. They have not spent the funds that we've given them, which were in 2022, 1,500, and the same in 2023. And so they would like to carry this money forward and use it at their new location, which is at the school. So if with that, I would take a motion to award the grant in aid in to allow them to use their grant in aid in 2022, 2023, carry forward to 2024.
I will second that.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll move that. I would second it. Yeah, okay. I moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Go ahead.
I recall that this was to go towards, at least one of them, towards, I think it was Peak Gravel for the playground area. Do we know what they want to put it towards? Seems how they haven't probably spent it all or any of it. I know that there was some chatter about maybe some fenced area on the back of the property. I'm not sure where we're at with any of the negotiations, but I was just wondering if they have an idea of what they were going to do.
I haven't heard of the idea, but it was going to go into the school site. And I don't know exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments? Go ahead.
Just to say, I gather the motion is that we leave the money with them.
Yeah, they've got the money, they've cashed the checks. We're not going to claw it back.
Thank you.
And that they've got authorization to use it going forward. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence for information. On page 115 of the council agenda, we have a letter from Dr. Harris at the CRD. This is regarding public consultation to shape the long-term biosolids management plan. There's a lot of information here. They've had an open house. There's an online survey that's open from this Friday on the long-term biosolids management plan. I encourage everybody to fill out the survey. It's a very controversial issue. Currently, we were sending the biosolids from the capital region to Lafarge Cement on the mainland, using it in their it's not liquefaction, it was like a gasification to generate energy. There's been complications with Lafarge Cement. Then we were sending it in interim basis up to the regional district of Nanaimo, where they are allowed to spread biosolids on some areas for industrial site reclamation, not for agriculture. And so it's very controversial, but it's clear we really need to have a plan for the biosolids. What complicates this is that the province says you need to consider applying biosolids based on their information. They are not harmful, so you need to consider applying it to lands in your region. So that complicates it. It's very hard to deal with the science of this because we're dealing with potential. What if there's something in the biosolids that affects generations going forward? are the microplastics going to stay in the environment? Are the pharmaceuticals that are in the waste product? But these are Class A, as you've seen from the information that the CRD provided here. These are Class A biosolids, the best biosolids, dry granular pellets. People put them in their hands. I certainly didn't on the tour. Anyways, so this is information for the community and for council. So I recommend that everybody fills out this survey. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
What I found confusing in the document is they refer to these as being the highest quality biosolids, and yet isn't the reason why we're not using them in our gardens is because they contain toxins?
Yeah, so there was a decision made, I don't know when it was, I think it was 2017 or so, at the time that the CRD made that they weren't going to apply it to lands. Other jurisdictions do. And so, and there's great opposition to this. And there's other people that say, why not? They do in lots of other areas. The scientist Glenn Harris refutes the claims that they contain toxins. But yep, it's very, very controversial.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to receive this information. Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have a letter from Minister Farnsworth with the provincial government responding to our letter indicating that the province is continuing to explore different approaches to road safety. If you recall, I wrote a letter with support for the City of Victoria's request for safety camera programs at very busy intersections. With that, there's no other questions. I'll take a motion to receive.
Motion to receive.
Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have another letter. This is a letter to Minister Farnsworth on page 123. To Minister Farnsworth from the City of Campbell River regarding the Community Safety Act and Community Safety Amendment Act. And let's see, what else can I say? This is regarding crime-related challenges in the community of Fort St. John and supported by the City of Campbell River. Anybody else want to comment on this?
I can move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have information on page 125. This is Vancouver Island Self-Film and Media Commission. They're thanking us for our grant and aid, giving us some idea of what the money was able to do, and I know it was able to do a lot, and I think what they meant is in part they were able to put the money towards some of these things that they were able to achieve at the Vancouver Island Self-Film and Media Commission. So this is for your information. With that, I'll take a motion to receive.
So moved.
Move for our
Receipt.
motion to receive by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Epp.
And I'll just mention, there is a reference to Metchosin here on the first page that the grant was also helped us hold or to increase and update the number of Metchosin locations in our location database. But reading through it, I didn't see a lot of impact on Metchosin itself, although of course there may be people in Metchosin working in the industry, I don't know. But just a thought when we come back to this, if we do this year under the grant and aid.
Okay.
program.
Councillor Epp.
Yeah, just a comment too, and they under their organizational goals and year-end results, they mentioned that they did presentations to local high school students and First Nations youth, but there was nothing, none of the schools on the West Shore had a presentation, and there was certainly, I don't see anything at any First Nation that they did as well. And I think if we are going to support them, I'd like to see them coming to our schools with their presentations as well.
Okay, good points. Okay, motion to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a letter from the PAC, the Peninsula Area Agricultural Commission. This is a letter from the PAC to the District of Saanich Council regarding non-farm use on agricultural land. So they're opposed to the non-farm use on agricultural land. This was in the media. The Council of Saanich did pass a motion where I think it was just 2 farmers were able to use their land for non-farm use, but the PAC is opposed to it. As am I, actually. I think agricultural land should be used for agricultural purpose, not for storage vehicles or storage of caravans and trailers. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Donaldson, you're the agricultural liaison.
Yes, thank you for that, and I agree with you. In this, we are members of PAC. So, and Robin Tunnicliffe, which is also a member of our community, is the chair here, and she's spoken she's taken a strong stand on this, not just here in Chosen, but on the peninsula, and at the recent Farmer to Farmer conference that we have. It's very important for people to realize that AR land is exactly that, is to be reserved for farming, and I understand the constraints that these farmers are dealing with and the things that they're doing. They're trying to be versatile in that, but this particular use has nothing to do with farming. I mean, they've done other things, they've had hay rides and various different things at different times of the year, whether it's Halloween or whatever, but this hasn't anything to do with farming. It's not even, I don't think, well, it's stated here, it's not even farm equipment, it's RVs and what have you. So, yeah, I support the quest of the PAC.
Okay. Anybody else wish to comment on that? Councillor Gray.
I'm just wondering, we've also got the letter from Bev Bacon, similarly agreeing with the mayor and Councillor Donaldson that Metchosin considering, well, she likes the idea too. She asks us separately, would Metchosin consider not allowing commercial storage of vehicles here? Is there anything to be done for Metchosin?
Yeah. Councillor Shukin, did you want to answer that question?
So, thank you, Mayor Little. This is an issue that has come up a number of times, and there's one property on Souk Road that seems to be there's proliferation of vehicles, and in fact, actually derelict vehicles as well. We do have, I believe we do have provisions in our land use bylaw to limit the amount of vehicles on properties. And I forgive me, I don't know the exact provision or like how it actually works or what the limits are. I think that's something for us to explore. Yeah, we have, thanks to Councilor Gray, we have actually heard that a number of times, and I think it's worth asking staff at some point, but they're busy right now with a bunch of other things, but to see what we can do to, if there are places to limit that. Storage of RVs.
I agree. Okay.
Particularly where they're stored to the point where essentially it's garbage. So.
Okay. Councillor Gray?
So might that be something we return to at the planning committee at some point? Or is it a bylaw question, or is it more just one of enforcement of existing laws? Or
Yeah, well, it could be. I would just caution, we will hear more about our strategic objectives for 2024, our work plan for 2024. We have a full plate already. And sorry, when I say we'll hear more about our work plan, that'll be shared with the public. I'm not sure that it is an issue, but I don't know if it's one we need to tackle this year amongst all the other issues that are out there. So.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
It is something that we do need to tackle, Councillor Shukin. It's something that it keeps getting reported to us in one form or another, And it's not just Soup Road. We can go out on the street right now and see that. I know it's dark tonight, but it's probably in a lot of our neighborhoods. I know it's in my neighborhood, it's in this neighborhood, and it's, some of these lands are farmlands. So just because it's over on Soup Road, it doesn't mean it's not before us. Probably everyone here has seen something. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that we should get a handle on it before it gets completely out of control, so we can mitigate the risks. Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think, again, I apologize, I can't be specific, but I believe there are provisions in our existing land use bylaw to address this. And we do have an unsightly premises bylaw as well that's going to be updated for the good neighbor. So again, yeah, not wanting to minimize this at all. It's probably best to be tackled within the goal of by law enforcement where there are environmental impacts and impacts to neighbors as well. So.
Okay, Councillor Knapp.
Well, as usual, it's all about enforcement and how to do it and how much it's going to cost and if it's possible. Certainly with the barns, it's I'm just not quite sure how they're going to go into somebody's property and look in their barn and then go after them if they have something stored in there. I can certainly sympathize and with the whole farming thing, but I just it's just a difficult question.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
And it's not just in barns, of course, it's outside of barns as well. That's what I'm talking about, visibility on lands that are useful for other things, for sure.
Okay.
That's the landscape.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to receive for information.
So
moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then lastly, we have a letter from Beck Bacon from February 27th on the 4499 Leafield Road property. There's numerous here. You've had a chance to read them, and so perhaps we can keep this in mind when we have when we are talking about this issue shortly. Okay?
Move for receipt.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to bylaws. This is the District of Metchosin Council Code of Conduct bylaw. We've seen this Code of Conduct quite a few times. Integral into the bylaw, it talks about integrity, accountability, respect, and leadership and collaboration. There is a summary of the changes that have been made to date. There is a copy of the bylaw with the changes made in red, as well as the complete bylaw. I would like to open this up for discussion. If there's anything that you want changed in this at this point, or can we move to third reading? Councillor Donaldson.
I just had a question under on page 156, where I think it's the definitions, where it has volunteer, and it's the red is what's been changed here. So means a person serving the district who is not a council member of staff, or an advisory body, stretched out board member. So when we go through the document, it will say advisory body member, but in some places it doesn't really flow as advisory body member. I'm wondering if it could just be advisory member, even though like it's defined there. So as an example, page 158, where a volunteer or advisory body member that council member wishes to bring to an attention, it's kind of wordy having the extra word in there. Body, I'm not really sure.
Okay.
It just seems there's a couple of them throughout that I've noticed.
Okay. Is anybody opposed to just advisory member?
Well, I'll just say that the reason we saw the change was it used to say advisory board and we don't have any. We only have advisory committees. And I guess advisory body was there because we've had working groups and other things. So advisory member maybe doesn't quite do it. If there's a word other than body, sure, but I think there's a need to say advisory where this person is sitting or working. I think body was chosen because, as I say, committees, working groups, I don't know.
Well, we could say committee. That's exactly what it is. And it's, yeah. Does anybody okay with the advisory committee?
Sorry, we're talking the definition under number 2. Section 2, is that correct? Or?
Yeah, page 156, the definition of
156, I'm sorry.
volunteer.
Okay, gotcha.
So the definition on the first page, bottom of the first page, it says, an advisory body member means a person sitting on an advisory select committee, comma, task force, comma, commission, comma, board or other body, and includes a council member appointed to the body. So I think it's kind of in the drafting here that it probably needs to stay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good point. Okay. Anything else? Councillor Gray?
Sure, just before that, definitions 2 in this bylaw, the first sentence, I think you can strike at the end of that sentence, or by the mayor. This refers to advisory body means an advisory select committee, task force, commission, board, or other body established or appointed by council or by the mayor. And really, in this, according to our procedure bylaws, it's only the council that does that.
Okay.
I have a couple of other points later in the document when you're ready.
Go ahead.
So on page 157, there's a couple of clauses here that I think are worth a little bit of discussion. So, and I want to say thanks to staff for working on this. Obviously, this is a chunk of work to get this all sorted out for us. I just had on the very first, number 8, it presently reads, a council member shall direct questions and inquiries regarding departmental issues to the chief administrative officer and shall refrain from contacting staff directly unless the communication is minor and for the purposes of seeking administrative clarity. I might just strike the words and shall refrain from contacting staff directly. That means that we can talk to people, but we'd still be unable to talk to them about departmental issues unless the communication is minor for the purpose of seeking administrative clarity. I just think we're such a small place, the opportunity to talk to our staff. We're not directing them or having any big issues, but shall refrain from contacting staff directly seems kind of a lot for a small place like this. So that was the first thought. It works either way, frankly. It's just a question of being squeezed down to not saying hello to people on the list.
Mary Lou?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had the same concern when we talked about this the last time, that again, we're small, we may run into staff members here and there. I'm okay with the way it is now because it seems to me the linkage is to questions and inquiries or matters where you might seek administrative clarity. So I think the refrain is really about, it points us to issues that are of concern to the council as a whole. So I'm okay with the way it is now. So,
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'm okay with the way it is. The intent is so that there's not one council member is taking an inordinate amount of time of staff, because the staff would then have to give all that information to the other council members as well. I think that it's just to protect the staff, and I don't see any problem going through the CAO.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to raise it as a potential one to clean up. I don't think it's so much about time, it's about the questions that you're asking. The second point, though, the tail end of this clause that I think is crossed out, I'd like to reinsert, and that is that council members not issue instructions or directions to staff regarding district business except through the chief administrative officer, period. I think that's the part that's in all these other codes of conduct, and that's the idea that the CEOs are single employee. So we could even start with the CEO's council's one employee, Council members shall not issue instructions or directions to staff regarding district business except through the chief administrative officer, period. That just clarifies the distinction.
Okay, anybody else have any comments on that? We went one way, and now we're correcting what we've...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure this reflects the discussion we had, that's why I'm raising it.
Councillor F, then Councillor Schuster.
Yeah, I thought that one was still in there. Didn't realize it hadn't been taken out. I thought that was our discussion. So I agree on that one.
Okay, Councillor Schuster.
I'm fine to, reading it, I wasn't miffed about the clause that's deleted. If there's a will to include it, I mean, it's, or to reinstate it, it's fine.
That doesn't matter to me at all. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other comments?
Summarily, I think sounds like consensus is to include that struck portion.
Yes.
Okay.
Just as far as
Just as far as the administrative officer, period.
Okay.
Then the next one, or unless there's others on comments on that clause number 9, I wondered about, we kicked this around quite a bit, and I think there was some good discussion. I'm a little bit concerned that we may overdo it by the very last sentence. Outside of a council or committee meeting, a council member shall not communicate with the tender or proponent regarding the subject matter of the procurement. Now, does that mean that I couldn't be with our chief administrative officer with a contractor and he's instructing them and I can be part of the conversation? Or does it mean, no, you can't actually even be with the CAO and assist? So I'm just asking the question there. I'm not sure it fits in, again, such a small community.
Yeah, I don't think it means that.
So that would be outside of a council or committee meeting. It shall not communicate. So it's quite a...
Yeah, I can't remember why this was inserted, actually. So that everything is struck out, and then a council member shall not instruct the district's contractors or service providers regarding district business unless the communication is minor in nature. And what you're opposed to is outside a council meeting or committee meeting, a council member shall not communicate with a tender or proponent regarding the subject matter of the procurement.
Just sort of raising it so that we could discuss it. I think it's a bit overkill.
Okay. Anybody else think this is overkill?
I'm fine with the wording. The concern I had was that we were excluded entirely from communicating with a contractor or tenderer. This does allow for some level of communication, and yeah, I mean, I see Councillor Gray's point about maybe you're with the CAO, you're outside of the committee and talking, but I'm not, I don't, there's always going to be tricky situations, and I feel fairly comfortable with the wording as it is now.
So just, I picked this up based on your comments at our last meeting, actually, that this would disallow you to have those conversations you were suggesting might be worthwhile. But take your advice on that.
Okay. Next.
Next was at page 159.21, and I think it's just something that was missed. Council members and their staff may take unpaid leave, and I think we struck "and their staff" because none of us have staff.
Mayor Little?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Tina, did you have something you wanted to say?
What clause that was?
21.
21?
Yeah.
21.
Someone else raised this at our last meeting. I just saw it, and it wasn't there. You're ready for another one? It would be clause 30 on page 162. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I think this was one where we were concerned that it says a council member, if I won't read the whole clause, but a council member shall not make a decision about an advisory body member being chosen or not. we just had an in-camera meeting and selected advisory body members. So I think that probably we just want to strike. If it's not, maybe it's my vision. The words "an advisory body member," I think should be struck there. Or deleted. And then a suggestion I think made, but if that's agreeable to people, just the idea that we do choose and select and.
So the advisory body should be removed from that, but it should be.
Everything else is okay. And then there might be just a way to just clarify that clause now, because we've is the second portion struck. This prohibition includes giving references. I can't quite tell.
The second part of number 30?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's struck. So it suggests that we might move the subtitle "Employment of Council Family Members" down to be above 31 rather than above 30, because it's only clause 31 that deals with council's family members. That's really a drafting question we can leave to staff and just mentioning it because it was mentioned at the last meeting. Then clause 34, again we have the reference of council members, family member, or staff, and we don't actually have staff. So I think we should strike the words "or staff" in clause 34. That's okay. I'll jump to one other one. It's clause 51. And I just wonder if that might read, council members may address media inquiries when the matter raised is specific to their individual portfolio rather than an individual portfolio. And for that to work, I think it should be moved up to be included as part of clause 47. Because clause 47 is all about whether you're permitted to talk or not to talk on an issue. And so I would suggest the clause would be moved up to 47. So it would read, the very final sentence would read, where no spokesperson has been appointed, council members may address media inquiries when the matter raised is specific to their individual portfolio. Otherwise, the mayor shall act as the spokesperson. And that just clarifies, I think they sit together better that way.
Anybody have any issues with that one?
I think that's a good edit.
Move that up to 47, 51 up to the paragraph of 47. Okay. Okay.
I think that's it. Maybe on 74, I don't know if this is necessary or not, but because of it, we have clause 72. 72 says that if somebody's investigating a blight commissioner, they can call it at any point if they believe there's no reasonable prospect that the complaint will succeed. And so it seemed to me down on page in 74, in the middle of the second sentence, this is about keeping records. These working records created by the commissioner are confidential once the investigation has been concluded rather than completed, because it can be concluded before it's complete. Concluded, the commissioner shall prepare a written report and provide the recommendations, etc. So just a suggestion of the one word. And that's all the suggestions that I have.
Would the investigation be concluded before the report was written?
The way I'm reading it, the clause 73, the commissioner can say we're done, but maybe not complete everything, just say I'm concluding it. And I was thinking in 74, it just leaves out that once it's been concluded, they all prepare a written report.
but a report would need to include that it was not a complaint worthy of further action, so it would need some kind of a report after that investigation.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
That's all the ones I have.
Okay. Anything else? No, thanks for that. Anybody else have any other questions? Yeah, go, Councillor Shukin.
I just want to compliment Councillor Gray on the close reading. So, but and also I do want to pass on compliments to staff. For the most part, I thought this was something I could support, and I'm happy to make a motion to move this to third reading as amended.
Okay. Councillor Tina, or Ms. Hanson, can you comment?
Yes, so if council wants to move forward, you can amend with those proposed changes, and then give third reading as amended, but you have to amend the bylaw right now.
Amend it now, and then give third reading at another time?
No, you can give third reading as amended, but you need to make a motion to amend the bylaw with those proposed changes.
Okay.
I'd be happy to move the amendments to the bylaw as explained.
Okay. Go ahead. Councillor Shukin, do you want to second that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah. You know what, I would like to say that I thank everybody for their patience in going through this. What I actually wish we had done was I wish we had waited for the CRD to do theirs, because I think their approach is it reads better, and it's not as difficult as a document to go through. There's not a lot of the thou shall nots. It's mostly their shall. I like the way the CRD document reads. So in hindsight, I wouldn't have sent it to legal to get them to draft this. I would have waited for CRD to do theirs. It's mandated that everybody consider a code of conduct to their municipality. So anyways, with that, we've got this one, and rather than throw it out, the baby with the bathwater, I will support this as well. Anybody else have any comments?
So, Mayor Little, I would move third.
Let's vote on that
sorry.
one. Yeah, first.
Okay.
The as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Mayor Little, I would move third reading of the District of Metchosin Council Code of Conduct Bylaw number 6A2.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So with that, we will not see it again. Yay! Okay, moving along to page 211. This is a well-written report from our planner to the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the zoning and OCP amendment application for 4499 Leafield Road. The applicants are here as well. If we wanted to ask them specific questions, I'm sure that they would be happy to provide some answers. So does any of staff want to introduce this, or Councillor? Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Pyatt.
Thanks, Mayor. Through the council. I think it deserves our attention. This is a serious matter, and it harkens to the OCP, it harkens to our reality and housing issues, and it harkens to the future. And I think it deserves an introduction and some leadership. And our planner has done an amazing job of establishing the facts, and it's up to council to debate the merits of the recommendations. But I did want to highlight what I believe are some of the more salient items in the document. But in the interest of time, I won't read through the details, but in the proposal portion, it does talk about rezoning And OCP amendments application was submitted by the property owners to change the zoning from Upland Rural Zone to RR Residential 2. On the next page, the rezoning application to RR Residential 2 designation would facilitate a subdivision application to a new parcel that is approximately 1.2 hectares. The land use bylaw 259, the details of the subdivision application will be reviewed through a separate process should the zoning change be approved. So there is our subdivision process that would be conducted. And the council bylaw, or the council policy PL 400-30, it does talk about council reviewing rezoning applications in terms of the merit of such an application. Discussion and analysis. The subject property is currently designated uplands in the OCP. And to facilitate the applicant's proposal of splitting the 4-hectare parcel into a 2.6 hectare and a 1.2 hectare parcel, an amendment to both the OCP and the land use bylaw is required. The environmental assessment has been updated by the applicant and confirms the geographical, environmental sensitive aspects of the subject property. The applicant rationale is provided for the change request, and referral comments. So the application was referred out internally and externally with no substantial comments were received to date, and that would be ongoing throughout the process, depending on which way council wants to go ahead. The legislative requirements to amend the OCP, staff are confident that this has been met. There's a conclusion submitted that I believe council has had a chance to read the conclusion. And in terms of process, we are at basically first and second reading of the bylaw. Then based on the direction from council, it's either killed or goes to public hearing. Before third reading, and then the applicant will meet any conditions placed on are recommended by council and directed by council before it goes to adoption. And so the options are presented. Option 1, 2, or 3. Option 1, just a little bit more complicated. I can read through it if you want, or council can deliberate on that. Option 2, that we can always bring back more information, and or that option 3 is council can deny the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shukin.
Mayor Little, thank you very much. And thanks to Mr. Payette and especially Ms. Lysyshyn for, I thought, a very compelling report. I've given this rezoning application considerable thought, particularly in light of the planner's report. I find that at the present time, I cannot support this. However, I do believe that there may be merit if we can postpone a decision on this at this present time, and I can explain why we might be able to do, or why that might be an idea to consider. So previously there's been discussion on this application in the context of questions like fairness and administrative clarity, and the onus on local governments to look at ways of addressing housing. And of course, we've heard the compelling information earlier today from the applicants about the need and the interest they have in bringing housing options to their own family. But as I reflect on this and as I think about the community, those issues are holding less weight for me on an important decision like this at this moment. So I understand that there are other lots which are zoned rural in this area. Rural, yes, but there are many lots in that area which this property is contiguous with, which are upland zoned. What was compelling to me or striking to me is that the introduction of a rural residential lot would be very new. And I want to note the characteristics of the rural residential within the OCP as they're identified by the planner in her report. The rural residential lot should retain its present distribution bordering the most productive farmland in the ALR, interspersed with larger rural holdings. So I would argue that this property and the use of rural residential zoning does not fit here. I recognize that there are other lots on Leafield that are zoned rural as opposed to rural residential, but those were developed and zoned prior to incorporation and of course by a different body. So those don't hold a lot of weight for me, unfortunately, but of greater significance are the housing requirements that the province now has brought forward, and we will have to be attentive to those as a community. So as we know, we are exempt from the provisions that will enable small-scale multi-unit homes, but we are not exempt from all the provisions. And so this year we're going to have to be going through a housing needs assessment, and then next year we are going to have to implement those within our OCP and our land use bylaw with an eye to addressing those needs over a period of 20 years. So to me, until that assessment is completed, as sensitive as I am to housing needs, I'm reluctant to make changes to both our OCP and our land use bylaw that fit one specific property and essentially do create a spot zoning. So I would move that we postpone further discussion of this application until such time as we have a clearer view of what those housing needs are and how we're going to address them.
Okay. This is a motion of postponement from Councillor Shukin. Could I have a seconder? Anybody wish to second this motion?
Second for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Epp. Go ahead. Councillor Epp, do you want to discuss?
Well, I just found this one really difficult because the zoning is ambiguous, but then there is the OCP. So I just, I kind of think we should. I hate to leave people in the lurch, but I think that we should postpone it briefly. I'm tempted to support it in this case. I certainly wouldn't normally, but I think the fact that of the way the zoning is with this property and the fact that the neighboring properties are similar to what they want to do. But we do have the housing issue coming up, and we will be tweaking our OCP in the near future. And I think that that would be a good time to be looking at this kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray.
I wonder if we could, if through the chair, we could seek the advice of the CAO. I'm not clear that we're permitted to postpone in this way. I think the proper thing in the circumstances is to deny the application and then it be resubmitted. Otherwise, we're playing a difficult game. I think we need to make decisions with the rules we have at hand. New rules come later and the applicant can come back later. But I don't think we can hold it legally. But over to Mr. Pyatt, perhaps.
Yeah. Mr. Pyatt, do you know the answer to that question? Can we, you don't? No? Yeah. I don't know the answer to that either. I thought that we could, but we would have to seek clarity on that. Go ahead.
I will withdraw my motion, but I would make another one right away if I could.
Are you okay to withdraw the motion, the seconder? Okay. Motion withdrawn.
Well, I'd like to move that we postpone a decision on this application tonight until we get clarity on whether we can use that mechanism on a longer-term basis.
Okay,
Postponement, that is.
okay, postpone to see if we can postpone.
And I hate to sound, thank you, you said it exactly the way it is. I hate to sound like a politician. I recognize this is a really difficult decision, and you know, the one thing I recognize is that we can talk about rural Metchosin, and it can be really abstract in a lot of ways. But whereas the outcomes of our discussion can be really material and tangible to the individual property owners. Unfortunately, though, if we don't take this broader look, that rural Metchosin and how we proceed with our zoning does become material, and we begin to, I think we begin to open doors that maybe we don't want to. So that's my concern. So moved.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Schuken, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Anybody else? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, again, I think that, well, we can do that. This would mean postponing this for like a year. That's a long time to leave the applicants here, and well, we can ask, but I think where we're heading is to deny the application in favor of our OCP. So I don't know that I can vote in favor of postponement. I just think that we have this thing about being fair to the applicants, say, look, the current rules and the current circumstances doesn't match our OCP, so it goes. Then in a future time, we make changes because we're interested in this kind of thing, or we don't, and they can decide to reapply. I just think leaving them for about a year is a long time to be sitting on the desk.
Councillor Donaldson.
I'm just wondering if maybe option 2 might be better. And the reason I say that is because there is other information that I would like actually our planner to look at, some stuff I found last week. So if we could actually just, it's kind of a way of delaying it some, but then not getting into the messiness of the word postpone.
Okay.
I would prefer that, you know, the information I'm talking about, and then we can, basically, it's not the first spot zone or whatever that happened in the community.
Yeah.
So I would like some clarity on that. So I think if we were to ask for further information, we could submit some of that information.
No. Okay. That may make it more fulsome. Councillor Schuken.
So I did make
that one too.
Yeah. So I did make the motion. Yeah. To get more information about postponement, essentially. So I can withdraw if there was a seconder. I don't know if there was.
No.
Okay.
What about you? Okay. Was there a seconder?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
Okay. Withdraw.
Withdraw. Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Okay. So motion that council requests further information from staff or the applicant, but I would say from staff specific to other examples of spot zoning.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. This is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. You want to speak to this?
Yeah, so in going through some records looking for something completely unrelated, I did come across another parcel of land back in 2006 that was similar, but there are some variables in it, and I would like to know from the planner if this is, if it would be applicable to this situation, whether it supports or doesn't support. What my question is it almost looks identical. And I would like some information on her, so I can provide her with those documents and see if that's any relation to this. Because I know a lot of people are saying, you know, we don't do spot zoning, we don't do piecemeal, those are stuff, but clearly we have. But I want to be clear from the planner's perspective. Okay. So I will present that to her. If that's okay with council.
Okay. You know, this is a hard one.
It is.
Because, and that's why they pay us the big dollars to make these decisions. Because clearly this goes against the OCP. We generally approach an increase in housing with affordable, with secondary suite, either detached or attached. And so, but on the interest of fairness, one can see an argument for doing this, considering we think we also have uncovered some precedents in the community. But I I think had we had this question 3 years ago, it would have been more clear to me. It's still, the housing issue with the province is really on my mind and weighing on my shoulders. And I think that it's not that it's clouds, it just gives us added a burden of responsibility because we have said in our letters to Minister Farnsworth that we should be exempt. They've listened to us, but we also said that we would do everything that we could within our powers. And so it's a very, very difficult decision to make. So I agree, let's get some more information. Councillor Gray.
I'm going to speak against the motion simply because I think we should decide tonight to deny the application. Voting yes for the OCP and no to the application. My view of the provincial materials that we've received, the notifications we've been provided, is that we put forward a point of view which is say we did not want to increase density, and the province took us up on that and said, great, you won't have to do that. We've received reports from our planner that lay out the density that we have at the moment is meeting the requirements of the government. I think that the province is keen that we remain rural and undeveloped, and that's why they made the decisions they've made. And I think we are in fact doing what we will do, short-term vacation rentals, dealing with any secondary suites and detached suites as required under legislation, and will have played our part. I think that most of us ran on the idea that we'd stick to our OCP, and I think this is an instance where we need to do that.
Thank you. So we're not completely exempt from this because we still need to do the housing needs assessment, and we still need to amend our OCP by June of next year, I think. And so we're not completely off the hook, and nor should we. We should do our part within the confines of our rural values. Councillor Schuker and then Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Sorry, I hate to sound like a broken record, but in terms of the information we might request from staff, I would still like the idea of the postponement mechanism to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can do that, the reason for that is ideally we put this almost in hibernation. The applicants won't have to pay another fee if they decide to do something later. Ideally, their environmental studies are still good as well after a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the outcome of the housing needs assessment is going to be, or how we're going to be able to address those requirements. So that's my thinking in terms of, again, that postponement thing. So,
okay, we'll ask for that.
Yep.
Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I just want to speak to the comment about densifying. This council is actually, we've had, I think, four variances to do with attached or detached secondary suites. And as the applicant tonight had stated, it had nothing to do with doing that. That's not something they wanted to do. But the point that stood out for me is actually they're building another house, which means that house will get assessed, which means taxpayer dollars are quite a lot different than what you would get from a secondary suite, which is a small floor plan. It's a renter that's not paying into the tax coffers, those sorts of things. So that was something that stood out for me, and some of the actions we are taking, we are creating housing because we do have the ability to do detached or attached, which is in-house. So those are things to consider too. When we're saying not densification, in essence, we are to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, it's another taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a value when we're talking about budget talks right now, and they have peaked.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, they're coming down. We'll find out on Thursday.
Okay, good comments from the finance chair. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the housing needs assessment as well. Of course, we haven't built out Metchosin. There's room for lots of houses here, and there are lots of dwellings in terms of the secondary suites and detached suites. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm just anxious that we hold out something to these applicants that may not come to fruition in the end. So we say, well, we'll hold on to your application for a year and then we'll tell you no then. And that just goes the wrong way for me. I'd prefer to be clear now. The rules today are like this. This is how we make a decision. And then they can watch as interested parties, like all of us will, to see whether or not the housing needs assessment changes anything. Because what it'll eventually do, using the new rules the province has given, it may say you need to allow, I'll make up a number, 250 more dwellings in Metchosin, and we say, oh, we're already zoned for that. So we're good. And then our OCP doesn't really change too much. Because we have the permission now to build those houses presently as secondary suites. At any rate, not to debate all of that, but I'm big into this fairness idea and letting people know when we're doing it. So I guess next meeting we'll make a more firm decision.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else they want to say about this application? Okay, so the motion on the table is option number 2 for further information from staff. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. And then we have some of the late information that came in. We have on page 3 of the first pink, that's the occupancy lease, as well as correspondence from Robin Tunnicliff, PAC. This is regarding Bev Bacon's letter on page 9. And then the OCP amendment application for Leafield Road. There were 3 letters in support, 2 letters against. And then we have correspondence from Jim McPherson. With that, I'll take a motion to receive for information. Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have no other business, and it's after 9:30, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor F. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody, for a good discussion.
Yeah.